Hey friend, today I want to talk to you about our dear pal, the ego. Public enemy number one. Want him dead or alive, but preferably dead, right? There's this big vendetta against the ego, it seems, at least in theory, and I get it. But maybe we got it all wrong. Maybe the ego is not really the enemy, but more of a misunderstood friend. There are phrases about ego death, killing the ego to become enlightened, and the ego being the enemy, which I think can be a bit deceiving and tricky. They may lead us to believe that eliminating that part of our human experience is the path to freedom and chasing an ideal that, if anything, should be acknowledged and brought to light. And some say, but yeah, if I eliminate this, then I will finally be free. And I get that. And I know that ego death and killing the ego is just phrasing, it's just words. But for me, words matter. For me, the goal isn't to eliminate anything, it's about to bring everything into my conscious awareness. So this isn't a rant against ego death. I just want to offer another perspective, one of okayness. I want my ego to be alive and as visible as possible. When the ego is out in the open, right in there in my awareness, it stops running the show from behind the scenes. And by alive, I mean in the light of my conscious awareness, fully visible but not identified with it. It becomes a passenger on the bus and not the driver. And let me share why that shift in approach has been crucial for me in finding okayness. So, what if being okay with the ego is part of that so called enlightenment? The ego is here to keep us safe. Think of it as an old friend who's maybe a bit overprotective and sometimes misguided, but it has good intentions. Somewhere along the way, it picked up some wrong ideas about what's best for us. It's built on misconceptions and it has a rule book we've created about how life should be, filled with stories of right and wrong, success and failure, love and rejection. The ego thrives on that duality of good versus bad, us versus them. And it also lives in the past and projects in the future. It's like, I am this and I need to be this way. I need to protect this at all costs. So it's obsessed with controlling and knowing and wanting to manage every aspect of our life to keep us safe. And when we're not aware of it, the ego runs the show from behind that curtains. And we're sitting in the bus thinking we're steering, blah, 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 we're in control, but the ego has actually got the wheel. It's driving us down the roads we didn't consciously choose. So, what's my goal here? It's not to kill the ego, it's to understand it, to see it clearly, and to make sure it's not calling the shots. I want to know how it's operating, all its stories, all its restrictions and preferences. They're like, I want to be successful. I need to be liked. I need to be loved. I need to be enlightened. Be this and be that. And then I acknowledge it and I say, it's okay, buddy. I see it. You're working so hard, but you're not driving today. Let me take the keys. You can chill in the back seat. I've got this. For 5 to 6 years, I was on this mission to eliminate that ego, fighting it, resisting it, trying to wrestle it to submission. And the more I pushed, the more it pushed back. And I've even experienced what some might call that ego death. It's twice. And I prefer to use the term egolessness. And yes, it was joy. Yes, it was bliss. And it was peaceful. But here's the thing, as incredible as that experience was, I realized that that's not our ultimate purpose here on earth. I believe we're here to integrate everything, accept all aspects of ourselves, and bring to life both the darkness and light within us. Everything becomes light. By illuminating all parts of ourselves, nothing remains hidden or suppressed, so not even the ego. And I might hear you say, but yeah, but psychedelics are a way. It's a powerful tool. And yes, they can be helpful, but also not necessary. For me, it's about getting to the total acceptance of the full human experience. For me, rejection and resistance are the root of that suffering. Resisting the ego is completely futile. It is more suffering, it's more resistance. So it's instead, I acknowledge it and bring it into my conscious awareness, which I keep real. It keeps it real and in check and allows me to live without the constant chase of eliminating it. Wanting it dead is just more resistance, which ultimately leads to that more suffering. The highest achievement for me is welcoming it in, welcome everything in, without letting any one aspect dominate me. I do this by cultivating that conscious awareness as much as possible. For me, awareness is power. Awareness is choice. Awareness gives you life. So I've changed my approach. I let my ego be, I see it clearly, understand it, and bring it into full awareness. And something remarkable happens when I stop trying to eliminate it. It will stop trying to control me because it loses its power. It's as the ego says, like, okay, you've acknowledged me, you let me be, I can now take that back seat. My ego hasn't vanished, but it no longer dictates my actions. It's a passenger now, still present, but no longer steering my life. So the ego has a purpose. It's trying to keep us safe. And it's working with outdated stories about how to survive and be loved. It's obsessed with controlling life and knowing everything, but that's not where our higher self operates. That's not how it does. The higher self thrives in trust and flow, not in control. By becoming aware of our ego and taking ownership of it, we not only transform our lives, but contribute to changing the world. If everybody does this, just imagine this. This awareness and non-judgmental acceptance are what truly will set us free. When we bring the ego into that same light, when we observe it without the judgment, it loses its grip. It becomes quieter, less demanding, but it's still alive, still part of us, just not running the show. So, how do we start making friends with this misunderstood part of ourselves? It's not about turning your life into a massive self improvement project. Rather, it's about small, intentional moments, little shifts in how we relate to our ego. The first essential step is to acknowledge that the ego is probably behind the wheel right now, influencing your thoughts and actions. Recognize that it loves to control life and craves certainty. But remember, your higher self, your true self, isn't interested in control or needing to know everything. It's all about trust, flow, and being present. So becoming aware of which place you're operating from, ego or higher self, that is crucial. It's like watching a bird outside your window or noticing a tree in the woods. You observe it with a little bit of distance, with curiosity, without needing to change or judge it. Apply that same technique to your inner world. It's all about cultivating awareness and understanding. They're about giving yourself space to notice what's going on inside without getting swept away by it. And here is how I have approached it, and maybe these ideas will resonate with you too. So, step number one is admit the ego is behind the wheel. And acknowledgement is key to everything. Your ego is probably driving the bus right now. It's been making decisions, setting the rules, and steering you based on old scripts you might not even realize are running. Bring it into the light and ask yourself, what stories am I telling myself? What limitations do I have? What judgments or preferences are guiding my actions? Am I trying to control everything and needing to know all the answers? Recognize that the ego is obsessed with control and certainty, while our higher self is comfortable with flow and not knowing. Becoming aware of which place you're operating from is crucial. This step cannot be skipped. So, step number two is shine a light on your inner scripts. Take a good look at the scripts playing in the background. So these are the automatic scripts and automatic thoughts, the shoulds, the musts, and the have tos, and they dictate your life. Write them down if you need to. Seeing them on paper can be a real eye opener. They make it real. Are these beliefs truly yours, or are they hand me downs from society, family, or past experiences, or something that the ego part of you has said, but yeah, this is really important to me. This is who I am. And again, anything identity focused is most likely ego based. And it's not bad in essence, but good to bring it into your awareness. Step number 3, make awareness a daily habit. Now that you see the ego's handiwork, make it a daily practice to stay alert. Throughout the day, check in with yourself. Am I acting out of free will and full consciousness, or am I on that autopilot? Am I operating from my ego or my higher self, which is in full awareness? There's a good chance you'll catch yourself slipping back into old patterns, and that is okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness, and this takes repetition. A nice place to start is allowing yourself 20 minutes a day each morning to practice awareness, to observe everything, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your sensations, without latching on to them. So, step number 4 is observe without getting hooked. When the ego quiets down, and it will, try watching it like you would a bird outside your window, curious but not entangled. Notice its favorite stories, its fears, its demands. See if you can find themes within them. So these are the convictions that keep you locked into place. The more you observe without jumping in, the less power it has over you. And step number 5 is reclaiming that steering wheel. Let your ego know who's really in charge. It's like telling a backseat driver, "Yeah, thanks for your input, buddy, but I've got this." Affirm to yourself that you're making choices based on awareness, not old fears or habits. This is muscle memory. So you're steering now, operating from your higher self, and which doesn't need control over everything or to know all the answers. That's how you know. So step number 6 is about embracing rather than erasing. So the aim here isn't to kick your ego to the curb. Instead, it's to welcome it as part of your human experience. Let it sit on your lap. When you bring it into that awareness, it stops dominating the conversation. It becomes one voice among many, but not the keynote speaker, drowning out all the other stories. Ironically, by fully accepting it, the ego often quiets down on its own because you have become aware. See that shift? Step number 7 is live in conscious awareness. And this is where the magic happens. Living with conscious awareness means experiencing life without constant judgment. And in this space, the ego loses its grip on you. You start making choices from a place of clarity and presence. You have the steering wheel back. Feel that in your hands, man. And the road ahead is wide open. And step number 7 is live in conscious awareness as much as possible, because this is where the magic happens. Living with conscious awareness means experiencing life without the constant judgment, without an identity and a rule book. In this space, the ego loses its grip. You start making choices from a place of clarity and presence. You have the steering wheel back, and the road ahead is wide open for you. So next time your ego starts acting up, don't see it as the enemy. Don't try to kill it or push it away. Instead, invite it to take a seat. Observe it with a bit of distance and continue steering your own course. Recognize when you're operating from a need to control and know everything. So, the next time your ego starts acting up, don't see it as your enemy. Don't try to kill it or push it away. Instead, invite it to take a seat. Observe it with a bit of distance and continue steering your own course. Recognize when you're operating from a need to control and know everything. This is your signal Gently shift back to your higher self, which thrives on trust and flow. And this is done by awareness, becoming aware. By bringing your ego into that light of awareness, you reclaim your power. And when the ego becomes a misunderstood friend rather than a foe, everything changes. You're no longer battling yourself. You're integrating, accepting, and moving forward with all parts of you on board. No longer the resistance, no longer the tension or friction. So remember, it isn't about achieving a perfect state of enlightenment where the ego disappears forever. It's about being real with yourself, staying aware, and choosing consciously as often as possible. So thank you for joining me on this journey. Stay curious, stay open, and remember, you've got this. I love you, and until next time.